In 1972, publishers rejected some of the material coming through Jane Roberts, who channeled an entity called Seth. They called it too radical for public consumption. Seth wasn't a typical spiritual guide. He was a precise, systematic teacher, offering step-by-step explanations of consciousness. He contradicted much of what mainstream religion and science claimed about life, death, the nature of reality, and the multidimensional self. During these sessions, Jane Roberts channeled Seth while her husband, Robert Butts, carefully recorded the material. Over the years, this collaboration produced dozens of books, now known collectively as the Seth material, covering a wide range of topics including the nature of consciousness, parallel realities, the process of reincarnation, the meaning of dreams, and the role of beliefs in shaping experience. One of the subjects Seth explored was birth, life, and the mysterious journey before you even enter the body, detailing what happens before and during birth. He described how consciousness gradually attaches to the forming body, how personalities choose their parents, and how the moment of birth is far more than a physical event. It's a profound transition, a shock that stabilizes the personality in the physical world. What makes these teachings so revolutionary? They reveal that life is far more multidimensional than we ever imagined, that consciousness exists beyond matter, and that your experience in the womb and at birth is just one part of a vast, unfolding reality. According to the Seth material, consciousness exists independently of matter and even shapes it. Long before a child is born, the process of consciousness entering the body has already begun, laying the groundwork for how the personality will settle into physical life. Next, we present the Seth material, exactly as Seth conveyed it through Jane Roberts. Consciousness exists independently of matter and shapes it. Even atoms have their own awareness. A fetus, for example, already has consciousness through its atoms, before the reincarnating personality enters. This consciousness of matter is present everywhere. A fetus, a rock, a blade of grass, or a nail. The personality that is preparing to reincarnate enters the fetus in its own way, according to its inclinations, desires, and characteristics, with certain safeguards built in. However, there is no rule then, saying that the reincarnating personality must take over the new form prepared for it, either at the point of conception, in the very earliest months of the fetus's growth, or even at the point of birth. The process is gradual and individual, shaped also by experiences in other lives. Most of all, it depends on emotional characteristics, not simply on the last incarnation, but on the accumulated emotional tensions of many past existences. Different methods of entry may be adopted. If there is a particularly strong bond between the parents and the coming child, and if the personality is eager for reunion, it may enter at the moment of conception. Even then, however, large portions of its awareness continue to function in the dimension between lives. In the beginning, the womb stayed under these conditions as a dreamlike one, with the personality still focused mainly in the between-life existence. Gradually, the situation reverses, until it becomes more difficult to keep a clear awareness of the in-between state, and the focus shifts more fully toward the forming physical life. When a personality does enter at the moment of conception, there are almost always very strong past life connections between the parents and the child. Or else, there is an intense, nearly obsessive urge to return to Earth, either for a specific purpose, or because the reincarnating personality is presently obsessed with earthly existence. This is not necessarily negative. In many cases, it only means that the personality knows it adapts well to physical life, is presently Earth-oriented, and sees the earthly environment as fertile ground for the growth of its abilities. Still, some personalities enter at conception from motives that seem less valid, such as greed, or an obsessive drive rooted in unresolved conflicts. On the other hand, Personalities that never feel fully at home in physical life may delay their entry. They can remain partially detached from the body for a time, even after birth, never committing themselves completely at once. At the opposite end of the cycle, the same dynamic occurs before death. Some personalities gradually withdraw focus from physical life and leave the body consciously, while others stay closely bound until the very last moment. In any case, during early childhood, the personality's focus is not constant within the body. Attention moves back and forth until the new identity has stabilized. All of this is not random. Decisions are made in advance. The personality awaiting incarnation is always aware when conception takes place, for it has been anticipating it. Whether or not it chooses to enter at that moment, it is irresistibly drawn by time, by place, and by flesh itself. Sometimes, long before conception, the future child's personality visits the environment of its coming parents, drawn again and again to the setting of its next life. This too is natural. Usually between lives, you choose your children ahead of time, and they choose you as parents. You may also catch glimpses of the future existence, not necessarily of specific events, but of the essence of the new life, the relationships, the challenges, and the experiences it will bring. In these terms, the ghosts of the future are as real in your homes as the ghosts of the past. You do not have completely empty shells of matter about to be filled, in that the new personality hovers in and about, particularly after conception, and with greater frequency and intensity thereafter. The shock of birth has several consequences, however, that usually draw the personality full blast, so to speak, into physical reality. Before this, the conditions are fairly uniform. Consciousness in the body grows almost automatically, reacting with intensity, but within controlled limits. At birth, everything changes suddenly. The stimuli arrive faster than the body's consciousness has ever experienced, and it requires a stabilizing factor. Up to that point, the fetus has been enriched and supported by profound biological and telepathic identification with the mother. Cellular communication is far deeper than you realize. Before birth, the fetus experiences itself almost entirely as part of the mother's body, but only in terms of bodily consciousness. At the moment of birth, that support is lost. If the new personality has not entered earlier to any full extent, it usually does so at birth, in order to stabilize the new organism. It comforts the new organism, in other words. The intensity of the birth experience depends on when the personality entered this dimension. If it enters at birth, it is quite independent, not yet identified with the body, acting mainly as support. If it entered at conception or before birth, it is already partly identified with the body consciousness, with the fetus beginning to direct perception and experiencing birth directly. In that case, there is no separation between the personality and the experience of birth, and it experiences the shock of birth in immediate direct terms. Even after entering, the personality fluctuates in consciousness. It takes time to stabilize fully. For example, when a child sleeps, especially a small child, the personality often withdraws from the body. Gradually, its identification with the between lives dimension decreases, until the majority of awareness is anchored in the physical body. Of course, some personalities identify with the body more strongly than others. In the early years, the personality's control over the body is weak, but it gradually strengthens. Sometimes a personality chooses a body that is not aesthetically pleasing. In such cases, it may never fully identify with the body. Even though the life serves its intended purpose, there remains a basic sense distance between the body and the personality within it. Those mentioned earlier who enter at the point of conception are usually highly eager to experience physical existence. They develop quickly and soon display strong individual characteristics. They cling to the body and shape it, exerting vigorous control over matter. These personalities typically remain fully present in the body and often leave it only through sudden death, sleep, or a brief illness. By general rule, they can manipulate matter skillfully. They are emotional, practical, and solve problems quickly, sometimes impatiently. They excel at working with earthly materials and bringing ideas into physical reality with great force. They build cities and monuments. They are architects and creators, shaping matter according to their will. Those who enter at the moment of birth are generally less capable of manipulating matter in this way, forming a middle group. Finally, some personalities resist the new existence, even when they have chosen it. They must be present at birth, but they avoid full identification with the newborn. They remain partially detached, hovering around the body with a hesitant presence. There are several reasons for this behavior. Some personalities simply prefer the existence between lives, focusing more on the theoretical resolution of problems than on the practical application required in physical life. Others discover that physical existence does not meet their needs as they expected, and find they progress more effectively in other realms of reality. Because of their nature, some prefer to maintain a certain distance from their physical life. They are more interested in symbols and ideas, viewing earthly life as highly experimental. They approach it almost with a jaundiced eye, so to speak. Rather than manipulating matter, they are curious about the way ideas manifest in it. In general, they feel most at home in the realms of thought, philosophy, and intangible realities. They are thinkers who remain somewhat detached. Poets and artists share aspects of this nature, though they often appreciate the physical values of earthly life more deeply. Attitudes toward the body can therefore vary widely. You can choose different types of bodies, yet the total being always carries certain preferences and characteristics, giving each life its own unique flavor. Each inner self, adopting a new body, imposes upon it and upon its entire genetic makeup, memory of the past physical forms in which it has been involved. Now, the present characteristics usually overshadow the past ones. They are dominant, but the other characteristics are latent and present, built into the pattern. The physical pattern of the present body, therefore, is a genetic memory of the self's past physical forms and of their strengths and weaknesses. Often you can call up a past strength of a previous body to help compensate for a present weakness. The body does not only carry memory biologically of its own past condition in this life, therefore, but indelibly with it, even physically, are the memories of the other bodies that the personality has formed in previous reincarnations. A crisis, particularly in very early or very late life, may so shatter the personality's identification with the body that he vacates it temporarily. He may do one of many things. He may leave so completely that the body goes into coma, if the body consciousness has also suffered shock. If the shock is psychological, and the body consciousness is still operating more or less normally, then he may revert to an earlier reincarnational personality. In such a case, this is simply a regression that often passes. As the present life of any individual rises from hidden dimensions beyond those easily accessible in physical terms, and draws its energy and power from unconscious sources, so too does the physical universe as you know it rise from other dimensions. It has its source there, and derives its energy from deeper realities. Each mental act opens a new dimension of actuality. In a manner of speaking, your slightest thought gives birth to worlds. This is not a dry metaphysical statement. It should stir within you the strongest feelings of creativity and speculation. It is impossible for any being to be sterile, for any idea to die, or any ability to go unfulfilled. You are, by analogy, sent out by a superself who strongly desired existence in physical form. You are no puppet of this superself. You will follow your own lines of development, and, through means far too complex to explain here, you add to the experience of the superself and extend the nature of its reality. You also ensure your own development, and you are able to draw upon the abilities of the superself. Nor will you ever be swallowed by the self that in these terms seems so superior. Because you exist, you also send out projections of your own. There is no end to the reality of consciousness, nor to the ways it can materialize. Nor is there any end to the developments possible for each identity. Even the mortal self is far more miraculous and wondrous than you perceive, and possesses far more abilities than you ascribe to it. That energy projected from your super self, that spark of intense identity that led to your physical birth, resembles what has been called the soul, but it tells only part of the story. While you continue to exist and develop as a person, your whole self, or soul, holds such vast potential that it can never be fully expressed through a single personality. You are presently focused not only in your physical body, but within a particular frequency of events that you interpret as time. Other historical periods exist simultaneously, in forms quite as valid, and other reincarnational selves. You simply are not tuned to those frequencies. Your scientists are finally learning what philosophers have known for centuries, that mind can influence matter. They still have to discover the fact that mind creates and forms matter. Now your closest environment, physically speaking, is your body. It is not like some mannequin shape in which you are imprisoned, that exists apart from you like a casing. Your body is not beautiful or ugly, healthy or deformed, swift or slow, simply because this is the kind of body that was thrust upon you indiscriminately at birth. Instead, your physical form, your corporeal personal environment, is the physical materialization of your own thoughts, emotions, and interpretations. Quite literally, the inner self forms the body by magically transforming thoughts and emotions into physical counterparts. You grow the body. Its condition perfectly mirrors your subjective state at any given time. Using atoms and molecules, you build your body, forming basic elements into a form that you call your own. You are intuitively aware that you form your image, and that you are independent of it. You do not realize that you create your larger environment and the physical world as you know it, by propelling your thoughts and emotions into matter, a breakthrough into three-dimensional life. The inner self, therefore, individually and en masse, sends its psychic energy out, forming tentacles that coalesce into form. Each emotion and thought has its own electromagnetic reality, completely unique. It is highly equipped to combine with certain others, according to the various ranges of intensity that you may include. In a manner of speaking, three-dimensional objects are formed in somewhat the same way that the images you see on your television screen are formed, but with a large difference. And if you are not tuned into that particular frequency, you will not perceive the physical objects at all. Each of you act as transformers, unconsciously, automatically transforming highly sophisticated electromagnetic units into physical objects. You are in the middle of a matter-concentrated system, surrounded, so to speak, by weaker areas in which what you would call pseudomatter persists. Each thought and emotion spontaneously exists as a simple or complex electromagnetic unit, unperceived as yet by your scientists. The intensity determines both the strength and the permanency of the physical image into which the thought or emotion will be materialized. The world that you know is the reflection of an inner reality. You are made basically of the same ingredients as a chair, a stone, a head of lettuce, a bird. In a gigantic cooperative endeavor, all consciousness joins together to make the forms that you perceive. Now, because this is known to us, We can change our environments and our own physical forms as we wish, and without confusion, for we perceive the reality that lies beneath. We also realize that permanency of form is an illusion, since all consciousness must be in a state of change. We can be, in your terms, in several places at once, because we realize the true mobility of consciousness. I hope you can now realize the eternal validity of your consciousness and the impermanence of those physical aspects of your environment and universe that may seem so secure. Your consciousness is timeless, creative, and forever unfolding. At your fingertips lies the knowledge of your entire multidimensional personality. Thank you for listening.